Hello, 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 everyone. Welcome back and Happy New Year. Happy 2022. This is our first session of this new year that starts. Um, how are you doing, Guilherme? How was your New Year's Eve?
Rafael was very good indeed. I'm so happy to be here again, and happy New Year to everyone. And let's hope we'll have another massive 2022 like we had last year, because we had so many good things, and we need to remember that as well.
Yeah. I can't believe we're already starting a second year or with Time to Talk, right? Not that Time to Talk still has 1 year anniversary to go, but we are already in the second year calendar wise. Anyways, hope most of you are used to our little faces. My name is Rafael, and this is Guilherme. We are the co-hosts of Time to Talk, um, and we're gonna start the year with a very special subject, a very special topic. Um, Let me bring that up. There you go. Um, Today is our episode 11, and the the theme, as I said before, it's a very special theme. It's childhood and mediumship. We're gonna get to it in a second, but before that, I want to say hello to everyone is out there is already joining us. I can see Elza and Fabrizia. Hello. Um, Please, as you know, the idea of this live is to open up a chat, have a conversation. So if you have comments, questions, you want to join us, participate, type in, put them in the comments box, and we're going to bring them up and read them through. What are the organizations behind this program? You ask me. Uh, so, there you go, too fast. As usual, SSL, the Spiritist Society of London, both Guilherme and I are members of the SSL. It's a Spiritist group that studies the Spiritist teachings here in London. We have a online session on Tuesdays and a presential session on Thursdays. If you'd like to join us, please go follow us on Facebook. You can get more details there. SSL is affiliated to BUS, which is the British Union of Spiritist Societies. BUS is a federation that pretty much puts together all of the Spiritist societies in the UK. And our third broadcaster, our beloved Kardec Radio, which has been around for over 10 years now, bringing a lot of content in English about Spiritism to all of us. All three institutions have one thing in common, which is commitment to sharing the knowledge around Spiritism. One note is Kardec Radio has so much content online. Go download their app where you can see everything that they have available. They have multiple lives, they have podcasts, they have books, videos, so many things. Go check them out for more content. Right, jumping into today's episode. As I said, we're talking about a very delicate topic, childhood and mediumship. And I say delicate because it touches so many things: the formation of the body, the development of the link between spirit and body during childhood. It touches parenthood a lot, the responsibilities that we have as parents. It touches an understanding, a very rigid understanding, I dare say, um, within Spiritism about physical and spiritual dangers of mediumship at young age. Anyways, it touches a lot. That's why it's a delicate topic. There's a lot to unpack. Um, And before I even start anything, what do you think, Guilherme? What do you think of this subject?
It touched my heart because, as we know, mediumship is natural. We all are mediums. There's not an age to be considered a medium. We are born with that. And over the years, we see a lot of kids, very young children, in need of support of help. I'm going to mention something that I mentioned on the very beginning of this journey, right? On the episode one, we started saying that we are not here to convince anyone of anything. We are here to share our knowledge, our experience, if we can, and what we had the opportunity to learn in the Spiritist over the years. So let's keep our open mind and remember that Spiritism is charity. Spiritism is helping those that are in need. I think that's a good start.
That is a good start. And before I move on, I just want to say also hello to Vanessa and Faye that just joined us and sent us their hello. Hi there. Um, Guilherme, I can sympathize a lot with what you said because, as I said, I think it's a delicate topic. And it's a topic that invites us to try to open up our minds and just be more receptive in terms of the reflections around that topic, which is sometimes taken as with such um, rigid terms, let's say. But anyways, why are we talking about this? First of all, um, as we keep on repeating, the content and the initiatives that we're trying to bring into discussion, they come from you. So, in a couple of weeks ago, or 4 weeks ago, actually, um, when we were talking about the development of mediumship, throughout the conversations and questions, this topic came up, and Ebony, which usually joins us in this program with her comments, she mentioned about mediumship and childhood, about the possible influence of spirits on kids, and how that if a kid was trying to show specific behaviors, how much of that could be an influence by the spirit, how much of that is a spirit, and so on. And then we talked about, in a very superficial way, about that link between childhood and mediumship. So that is what triggered us to bring this topic as a full episode. I want to start the discussion talking about the very first thing that we explored when we started Time to Talk. We started Time to Talk talking or exploring the possibility or the reality of spiritual life. How did we know, or what kind of examples we had around us that would give us an indication that there was life after death? And we saw cases of people that um, when they were at the deathbed, they started seeing other people and hearing people and having experiences outside their bodies, um, and where they could see themselves as spirits or they would be in contact with other spirits and so on. And when we looked into it, we understood that what happened in those cases, and they are very common, by the way, is as your body starts to get into a worsened or a worst state, physically speaking, and your spirit starts to disconnect itself from the body as you approach death. Um, your spirit starts to regain part of the abilities and the senses that were limited by your body. So it's like it loosens the links between spirit and body that were pretty much only allowing you to perceive things through the senses of your body. Now, how is that linked to childhood and mediumship? If you think about birth and how a child is born and how the body of a child is formed, um, and how they develop as they grow, the spirit says, and I'm gonna bring our favorite quote or a favorite source, let's say, which is André Luiz. Um, the spirits explain to us, and André Luiz explains to us that there are phases from the moment of birth until a moment in the childhood where that connection, the link between the spirit and the body is consolidating itself, is becoming more solid, let's say. Um, I'm gonna, I love a quote, so I'm gonna bring a quote here, so we can take a look at that. In the book, Missionaries of the Light, chapter 13, which pretty much talks about reincarnation, another topic for an episode. Um, Andre Luis talks to us about a case where we have a spirit that is going to reincarnate, and that spirit has a mentor or a guide or let's call it a spiritual angel or guardian angel, call it as you want. Um, and it's explaining that that specific spirit, once it's prepared to reincarnate, it will have a spiritual guide close to the newborn until they are 7 years of age, and then they go on and explain in those lines. In the new experience, until he reaches 7 years after rebirth, when the reincarnation process will be consolidated. And then it goes on to explaining about the link between the guide and the child. But for me, I just wanted to pick up that phrase. After 7 years of rebirth, reincarnation process will be consolidated. So Angela Luis give us that. Then it goes on explaining a bit more about that, and it brings to us this other paragraph that says, um, after the rebirth, the period of assimilation of different organic energies is initiated. Only at the age of 7 years, the child starts to preside on its own the process of formation of blood. Blood is therefore like the divine fluid that fixates us to the activities in the material field. So I should go a bit more scientific here, but I guess the main message is there is a moment from birth until around 7 years where the body is still developing, and that development is also the consolidation of the link between the spirit and the new material body. Now, if I go back to the parallel I was drawing in the beginning, if I link that to, remember when we are in our deathbed and our spiritual links are a bit more loose, then we expand our abilities and senses to communicate with the spiritual world. It's fair to say that at infant stages, you might have a similar case where before your spirit is fully connected and consolidated with the new body that will receive that spirit, you might also have access to some faculties or some bit more freedom, let's say, in terms of the senses that your spirit has to interact with the spiritual world. Guilherme, you did a eyebrow raise. Would you
No,
like to add anything?
no, I don't. I'm just thinking because this topic is very close to my heart. So I was just thinking for the time being. Carry on.
All right, all right. Um, so that is just, I think that's a concept or an idea that is, it's a base that's important for us to have in our minds when we are thinking about and studying or facing situations where we see kids that might be presenting, um, I guess, behaviors that they might be seeing things or hearing things or interacting with others. It doesn't necessarily mean that they are going to be extensive mediums. It could be just that specific phase of development where they are still fully integrating with the new body. So I think that's just an important, I guess, concepts to have in mind when we are talking about childhood and mediumship. But does that mean that a child then cannot be a medium? No, that's not what it means. um, um, we've been talking in the past like many weeks. We did dedicated a lot of weeks talking about the development of mediumship, and we understand that mediumship comes based on missions or projects or plans that people need to carry on in their lives. And we need to have also in our minds that a child, although in the moment seems to be uh, innocent and new and kind, and you say it. So, but in reality, we understand that they are as formed a soul as any other adult, as any of us. The mind that they might be in that specific moment, in that little body, still developing that current um, capacities, capabilities, abilities, personality, and so on. But in reality, there is a full formed spirit that has lived multiple times, and it brings with it, with him or her, um, all of the baggage and the plans that they committed to develop in that life. Another important thing to keep in mind in the background of the mind. Um, but we, as I said, when we are kids, we are developing, right? So we are, your body is still developing, in the same way that we've been talking about having to have the strength to be a, remember the last few meetings, and even last time we were talking about Jesus as an example of medium. We were talking about the importance of having commit a commitment to improve yourself, put yourself, dedicate yourself to work towards the others, being charitable, study, understand what's behind mediumship, understand what's behind your situation, and committing to producing something good from what you were given. Because otherwise, you might open up doors to spiritual companions that might not be as enlightened and not as committed to a good cause. They might take advantage of you. So, if you think about a child who is still developing its abilities, capacities from a physical perspective, as well as from a mental perspective, in terms of free will, ability of thinking, and so on. Having a child as a medium imposes some care or some issues that might come with it. And Kardec, let's go back to the main source. Kardec, when he was studying and developing, or grouping, let's say, the books and the knowledge that was being given to him 150 years ago, there were some mediums that were pretty young that were working with him in this sense. So when he started to investigate a bit more mediumship, there was a moment where there were specific questions related to children being mediums. I want to bring these here so we can take a look at them together before I move on. Before I bring them on, Guilherme, is there anything you want to add?
Let me bring something here so people start to think about it. Let's assume we are fathers and mothers of a young child, let's say 80 years old, that has mediumship and is not just having mediumship, because we know we all mediums, but the mediumship is booming, is bursting, talking, singing, whatever you think. And you need to find help. You need to find support. Do you, as a parent, you really want to be helped, isn't it? You really want to find something that will bring a bit of peace.
Of course, that's a
Diminish.
natural instinct, if anything.
Okay. So you really need a help for your kid, right? So the main goal is to help your kid. So let's keep that in mind for the time being, and we come back to that later.
Okay. What you are kind of the seed that you are planting in terms of reflection goes with a question that Faye is putting in the box. And I will bring the question, but I'm not going to draft any answer yet. I'm just going to bring the question. So Faye is asking, so parents should not rush into a decision of treating a child's sensitivity as mediumship for life. I'm going to
Let's
leave that
answer that.
question.
Yeah.
I'm going to leave that question for here, and then I'm going to bring it back again. But leave it for us to have in our back, in the back of our minds. So I was going to show to you a passage from the Medium's book. So the Medium's book, I have chapter 18. Let me share again. Oop, lost it. There you go. So chapter 18, we have a question 221, which is actually broken into 8, I think, other questions. And that specific section is talking about the dangers and risks of developing mediumship. And those sub questions, I'm only bringing a few of them here. Again, please, I recommend everyone that interested in the subject to go to the Medium's book and take a look. But anyways, that specific sub question says, Kardec was asking, could developing mediumship in children cause problems? To which they reply, certainly, and sustaining it could also be very dangerous, because such fragile and delicate organisms would be very disturbed and their infantile imagination too overexcited. Thus, prudent parents will keep these ideas away from them, or at least they will speak to them regarding their possible consequences from the mental point of view. Thoughts, Guilherme?
May I?
Yes.
Well, let me start speaking a little bit about where I'm coming from. The, the institution back in Brazil that basically I almost know from the time I was born is an institution that officially exists for 76 years, and they had mediumship meetings almost 20 years before that. So we're talking about almost 100 years old institution. I was very, very fortunate to have access to very open-minded people, very competent people, I would say, because they force everyone to study to a certain extent. Force is a very strong word to say, but they really encourage everyone to study, really study the doctrine. And my father, he was an indoctrinator of this institution. Still is, still alive, still is. And my first mediumship meeting, the first meeting I had the opportunity to join, I was 15 years old. And I will never forget, my father said, as part of your learning process, come with me, sit with us, listen to everything, and we will start to having questions after. That was my first meeting. Of course, before that, I was prepared to that point. Remember that I was born in this Spiritist environment. Spiritists were part of my life since I remember. So there was no drama. And those very same people still there, at least two of them still alive and working as indoctrinator, they always push me to study and to understand what charity means. Why I'm saying that? Because over the years, we saw many people coming to us where they found closed doors elsewhere. And they had kids in a very poor status due to mediumship. As I said, I was very fortunate to work with people that were willing to help, understanding mediumship as a tool to bring peace and to help people in need. It is dangerous if we don't have proper support. We do not advise to push any kid to try. If we can, let's wait for the proper time to do it. But sometimes it's not possible. Sometimes you cannot control. So we have tools in the Spiritist doctrine that allow us to bring help. So sometimes help cannot wait. So I think that's what I want to comment here at this point. I don't want to go too far.
No, that's fine. I think that it's just that reading this item again and listening to what you said, it's if you think about, I think the words that come to my attention here is um, infantile imagination, overexcited, fragile, delicate organisms. Um, so it comes from again, it comes from I guess still lack of full understanding of the development of that we have, the development of the body, the connection with the spirits, and the links that the mediumistic um, effect might have with a person who is incarnate and with a spirit, and especially if you're talking about a child. So I think that's why it's such a delicate subject, and they're in the interest to protect the kids, which from a mental and physical perspective are still getting ready to become a full adult and be able to exercise its free will and make your decisions and so on. There's an additional, I think, there's additional care that
Well, I think I'll go even further. Every
yeah,
Spiritist institution should consider seriously the duty of care and the well being of
yeah,
everyone. And if you're talking about kids, even more. So
exactly.
that's why we always have to refer into serious institutions,
Yeah,
institutions that you can have studies, you can have practice, you can have a background, let's say, to be
yeah,
sure that you could be in good hands.
yeah. Well, you said something interesting there, which is like refrain from to develop the mediumship. Um, because I want to bring the next question that Kardec had in the medium's book, which is same. Well, it's a sub question, right? It's after this one, and it says, nonetheless, there are children who are natural mediums, whether of physical effects, writing, or visions. Is the same danger involved in these cases? And the spirits bring to us categorical no. When the faculty manifests spontaneously in children, it belongs to their nature and their constitution is adequate. The same does not apply when mediumship is artificially caused and induced. You may notice that children who have visions are usually little concerned about them. Visions seem very natural, so they pay little attention to them and almost always forget about them. Later on, however, the remembrance returns and is easily explained if they understand Spiritism. There's a lot packed in this answer. There's a lot packed in this answer. Um,
Can we come back to that answer later again?
okay, yeah,
Let's leave that at the moment.
okay.
Well,
I'll go. So go ahead. Go ahead.
I I think that every Spiritist institution should work with the spirits, should listen to the mentors' instructions, should be acquainted with those spirits, those mentors. Using that as a premises to have a safe work, I think is important that before we consider one way or another, we need to be able to recognize whom we are working with, having a tracking record, if I can say like that, of experiences with them, with the spirits, having a serious team. The team means both sides, and always willing to get better. When I mean get better is improve the team as a morale, as a group, improve the knowledge, being very serious about study and about practices. Why I'm saying that? It is paramount to trust the spirits you are working with. And in my opinion, it's also very important to work with them. Because as we know, our capabilities, our perceptions are limited when we are incarnated. And if we do have a mentor for our institution, do we trust him or they or them or not? We should ask that ourselves as well. Because if we do trust them, if we are used to work with them, we can always make questions. We can always listen to their instructions. Of course, always analyzing everything. But over a period of time, like 15, 20 years, I think you can make up your mind if they are trustworthy of the instructions they are giving or not. You will have in your database of your institutions if it does work or not, what they say. Am I right to say that? I think yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So I think now I'm open to a part that we would like to mention about some examples. Or do you
Yeah.
think it's too early?
So no, I think before we just, yeah, for sure. But before we go into examples, I just wanted to, if we look at these two passages or these two answers from the spirits in the medium's book, and I think it's very clear that artificially, I think when they say artificially, what they were artificially causing or inducing people to or kids to develop mediumship is not what's being recommended by Kardec. However, he is also saying there are spirits that are, or people that are young, a young age, where they are spontaneously um, showing their mediumistic effects. And linking to what you were saying, whenever you're talking about mediumistic effects, it is super important that we trust the spiritual group, the spirits that are behind whichever initiative, work, exercise, whatever it is, um, so that they can guide us because they have a better understanding and a more of a full knowledge of the situation for that specific spirit. So again, it comes from a moment of trust, but there must be that element of the spiritual guidance behind the group. Anyways, with that in mind, let's go to the examples you have experienced, Guilherme.
Let me
Just
start.
before, just before you go in, I just don't want to leave Gisela waiting. Gisela, put a few comments here. I'm gonna bring your comments at the end if we have a chance. Otherwise, we'll pick up in the next opportunity. But I will get back to them before we finish. Go, Guilherme.
Okay, let's do a deal here. I'll give the first example, and then we go to that question, because I think that is important.
Yeah.
If there's a question, especially in this topic, it's important to give something.
Yeah.
Okay.
Her question is linked. It's anyways. Go for it.
Okay. So I'll give you the first example. One young kid, she was approximately 8 years old, and she came to our house, to our institution. We called our house because that's the way we feel like. And the mother was clearly suffering with the conditions of the kid. The way we work, we make like a consultation to identify what is the problem, what is the real root cause of the problem. After we make a consultation with the spirits, only after that we gave the instructions to the parents of what they recommend. We do not force them to do anything. We just suggest and make ourselves available to help. That young kid, mediumship was the first time I had the opportunity to see. And I could not find that mediumship described in Kardec's book. I could not. The kid would look to you or to me and could see us like she had an X-ray vision. Imagine a very young kid looking to everyone all the time, only seeing bones, like a real X-ray. When the mother said to us initially, we said, we never saw that. So we always like to do some research, evaluate things. Only the following week, we brought that question to the mentors, and the answer was yes. She really sees everything on X-ray. And this is nothing like from time to time. It's almost 24/7. You can see that as a responsible parent, you took the kid to every single doctor you could. She gave every single prescription received by the doctors. But we do not treat mediumship in that way. You will not fix a mediumship giving a prescription. Sometimes it is required, but you don't fix mediumship as such with drugs. Well, could you imagine how the kid with 80 years old going to school, going to talk to friends and everything, only see X-ray in his vision? You could imagine the shape the kid has arrived at institution. Every time we got something different, that was kind of my duty to do a thorough research. And I've started. I could not find anything like it for years. Only a few years later, when I was in a lecture with some AMIS, a medical institution back in Brazil, alive, that was 2 years ago, speaking about this case with doctors, we found in the same lecture 2 other persons with that kind of mediumship. One was the father of a well-known doctor that works on La de Frei Luís in Rio de Janeiro city. And another person that was attending the lecture. We did not know her. When we start to describe that mediumship for further evaluation, that young lady asked to talk because she need to talk. I have exactly the same. So there was not only one case. That lady, she was living in France. The other person was living in Rio. 3 different locations, 3 different places, completely different histories, but the mediumship was pretty much the same. Coming back to the kid, 8 years old kid. We follow all the treatment that was possible and offered by the institution: gospel at home, physiotherapy, passes, treatment. And over a period of time, the mentors, they said that they would put that mediumship as dormant for the time being, but just for the time being. So the kid stopped seeing those visions. But if they were right, and as she's getting older, that probably will come back. But at least she will be more mature. So that's one case. Shall we go to the question now?
I think before I go to the question, I think it's probably worth to just have a little chat. In this case, this is quite a good case where pretty much the Spiritist group who was helping the kid. It follows pretty much what's said in the first question that I showed, where the access to treatment, the spiritual treatment was there, and the spiritual group, the spirits that were behind that specific center, were the ones that brought the treatment and brought the conclusions and the guidance of where they would go. And of course, having trusted them for such a long time, that's what the group decided to do with the kid, and that's what happened to the kid. But I know you have other cases where it was a different um, situation, and I would be interested in hearing about those cases. I would tell you that because the question I have from Gisela, it goes back to parenthood, and I think after you look at the other one of the other cases, we can talk about parenthood and how that plays a huge part in kids with mediumship, and it goes back to the question from Faye as well.
Okay. So let me go to the case number 2.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. We had another kid, well, kid for me, 12, 13 years old, from a
Kid.
Spiritist family, right? So father and mother, they were Spiritist. They've been passing from institution to institution, and they could not find the help they needed. Who doesn't? Well, later on I'll talk about different perceptions in the institutions. But making a long story short, they went from house to house and they end up with us, right? And this kid, she could see, she could hear, she started to write on the school, at home. She could see spirits like we see each other here. And as always, looking for the professionals that could help the situation. But this kind of thing cannot be helped with professionals. Not normally, at least. And once again, we follow our protocol. Initial interview with the family, with the kid. And this first contact normally is made by a medium from the institution. So you could see the initial perception also plays a good role on it. Following week, we went to the consultation with the spirits, with the mentors, and the instruction was clear. We need to give her study. Let's invite her to this study ABC. Usual instructions, we need to bring balance to their home through gospel, through a few other things. And let's send her to the treatment. What is treatment? Basically, 10 sections of pass section.
Healing.
So you
Yeah,
could easily
healing.
understand healing. In the end of the 10 sessions, we made another consultation because we noticed that the situation was exactly the same, haven't improved through everything we could offer. We asked the mentor, and he said clearly, well, you need to take what I'm going to say to the family, and this is our instruction. The kid and the mother, they need to go to be part of a mediumship meeting. The mediumship is so live that has to go to the meeting. She will find treatment, if you can call it that, in the meeting. We spoke to the mother and father, and they accepted. Initially, it's a slow process to bring them close. It's not like straight away, but then they start to participate on now one of our meetings, because we have more than one meeting a week. And after a very short period, I think 2 weeks after she started to become regular, what had been seen as a problem started to go away. She started to have control of the abilities, if I can say like that. That was a positive way. And this kid is still with us until today. The mother as well, by the way. We found that the mother was also medium, ostensive medium, and they are working with us today. So that was a very positive case. So I'll stop here. Well,
No,
bear in mind, I'm not giving too much details because it's something very
yeah,
private. I'm just
yeah,
giving you guys an idea. But if you feel like you want to make any questions about it in more details, I will try to answer.
yeah. If everybody who's there with us wants to send any comments or questions, please feel free to do so. Well, I have comments about that case, to be honest, and I can see how people would be very reticent to accept that suggestion when in Kardec's literature there's such a strong indication that because of the how fragile a child's body and mind still are,
Mhm.
how that should be avoided at all costs, almost as a rule. Um, and uh,
Just before I lose it, in general, they come asking for help when they tried, in theory, everything.
yeah,
And I'm not trying to describe the situation, but the parents, quite often, they are very desperate to find
yeah,
help,
yeah,
desperate. Because some of the pictures we see when they come, they are not pleasant. They're definitely not.
yeah. Um, which is fine, I think. But in both, to be honest, both cases, even though they have different conclusions, the both cases they brought to us, they have very important similarities in how the center dealt with it. And to me, again, if we talk about specifically about the second case, where is the one that it's less, um, I would say less of a traditional approach, because most Well, and we know that that wouldn't be the first option in any case to put a child in a mediumistic session because of the reasons we already mentioned. But if you see, there's a there's a list of actions that come before that. There's a list of attempts and trials and other things that need to be fixed before that. And healing sessions, study, the environment of the house. And I think that's what I want to get to jump to the question from Faye and Gisela, but the environment in the house. And I think that's where we need to place a very important responsibility that now starts to go beyond the material world that parents have towards their children. The responsibility you have with your children, it doesn't stop in getting them, grown ups, healthy, with their life sorted. It doesn't go only to that sphere. There is also this element of, if we know we are susceptible to influence of spirits, and if kids in their early stages, where they're still developing that strong link between spirit and body, they are even more susceptible to the influence of spirits. So if you as an adult does not have enough habits or healthy habits in your house, in your mind, to create an environment, a spiritual environment to help that kid, then you're missing something as well. So there's an element of responsibility that comes with the parents, and I think it was quite good what you said, both of them, that they were doing a gospel at home and they were studying and so on. Um,
By the way, Rafael, that kind of environment we should have in our homes anyway, right? And if
Regardless,
we,
yes,
and if we do have a situation like we are talking here today, it's kind of obligation if you want to do something to help our kids.
absolutely. Absolutely. I think we should have anyways, but especially if you see kids that might be showing signs of mediumship, it's even more important. It should be definitely a priority that you have, because you also need to have in mind, if you received that spirit to be your child, you also are committed to helping them developing what they need, so they can go in the journey that they have planned for them in the best way as possible.
You
um,
are part of the process.
exactly. So Giselle, I don't know if I'll be able to bring all of it here. So Gisela is asking, it's one issue parenthood. So she has a question, and it says, Um, what do spirits say about this COVID pandemic effects on the young children development? I'm particularly concerned about children younger than 3 years old who rarely laugh, run, experience joy because their mothers are obsessed with cleanliness and constantly tell them no. What do spirits say about the development of these children? Would it be okay? What can we do to help them from far, etc.? I think she included more things, but can read it from here. What would you say, Guilherme?
Well, this is a different subject, right? And you haven't mentioned that kid having any mediumship characteristics. But what I would say is that we all are learning to live a little bit different. Everything in excess is not positive, right? We all want to take care about our kids the best we can. I have young kids here next door, so I can understand the will of protecting everything all the time. But we need to find a balance because life will go on. We are about to finish the pandemic. As per doctors' instructions here today on the TV, they said this very latest Omicron is something that will help us all to finish with the pandemic faster. Maybe. I'm just telling what I heard here on BBC. And I think that from distance, how to help? Well, prayer is a massive tool we all can use at any time. But talk to the parents. Try to make them see reasoning behind different actions. And I think that's what I would try to start with.
That leads me to the question that we showed before from Faye. Like it goes back specifically talking about children that might be showing sensitivity, or mediumship sensitivity. So parents should not rush into a decision of treating a child's sensitivity as mediumship for life.
No. The answer is no.
I think rushing is
Any
never
mediumship,
good. But go, Graham. Sorry, go ahead.
never good. No, never good. Never good. Mediumship, adults or kids, we should never rush. We should study, evaluate, understand what's going on, and then prepare uh, a directive, a line of action with good support, with someone familiar with the phenomena that will be able to help. And there are Ian Stevenson. He had a massive work, wonderful, where he conducted several interviews with kids, young kids. They were able to remember the past incarnation. Some of them kept the memory after a certain age, but the majority of them start to fade and stopped. So, as Rafael rightly said in the beginning, the ties are not very strong when you are a very young kid. So you can have a better perception of the spiritual world through the process of your, let's say, your settlement to your new body, and things may stop. I would not rush. If there is a concern for the parents, ask for advice, ask for some help. Mainly treat it naturally because it is natural. Never tell the kids stop. We have so many cases that come to us where they stop the kids in so many different ways that is not advisable. So be patient, and I would say the majority of the events will stop when the kids getting older. So do not
Yeah.
rush.
I think that's a good thing. Like if we think about if you start understanding the mediumship as a part of that child's life that they're gonna have to develop as an adult and make use of it as an adult, it's a journey for them to get used to concepts, understand what's happening, understand what's how things work, understanding about spiritism, having an environment in their house, in whatever they are, that helps them and protects them from um, harassment from spirits that might not be um, linked to them through the best intentions. Having a gospel at home, studying spiritism in a center, having the spiritual treatment coming from a center that you trust, that is serious, that is established. All of those things, those are all things that you should have around somebody who is a medium. If it's a child, even more carefully. Um, because again, in the end, the idea is that as an adult that came with that ability, you need to use your free will and your knowledge to put that to use. How are you going to do that? It will be up to you. It will be up to them once they are adults. There are a couple of I know we're reaching our limit here, but I think I'm going to extend it for a couple of more minutes
Oh
because
dear,
there are a couple
time
of
flew by.
yes, there's a couple of comments that I think it's worth to mention. Pretty much, Marco is pretty much telling, just kind of summarizing what I just said, which is parents must re-educate children to the new spiritual world reality. So if parents create an environment and educate them in making a habit of praying, of studying, of maintaining a balanced and healthy mindset, mind frame. All of those things, there are things that will be extremely helpful, not for the family, but also especially for the kid who might be facing that. Um, Faye added another question here because if you think about, and Guilherme mentioned that to be honest in another case, that um, usually if you see kids that might be seeing things or talking to spirits or so on, that people might jump to a conclusion that they might have psychological issues, that they might be they need to go see a psychiatrist and so on. And two things that we need to make, and Guilherme mentioned that, I think two things that needs to be also very careful is a mediumship um, issue or unbalance um, doesn't mean or doesn't necessarily touches a physical imbalance. So if people have physical issues, problems, and so on, it doesn't necessarily mean that treating one will treat the other. Usually, especially when you're talking about mediumship and psychological issues, you might need both of them walking hand in hand. Um, and that is, again, another challenge because I'm going to bring a face question here right now, which is she says, wouldn't it be helpful if in the medical community also had some insight into the possibility of physical manifestation of disturbance of mediumship on children? That would be ideal. And as science evolves and medical professional evolves as well, understanding a bit more about the spiritual side of life, we'll probably get there. I don't think we have that as a rule yet. Go, Guilherme. You're itching.
I am they. Well, uh, I'm having a close contact with a lot of spiritist doctors because of a project I'm working with them. And I'm glad to tell you there are some universities, doctor universities, that they now have a category that all the new students have to go through it called spiritist. The spiritualism? No, not spiritualism. They call it a different word, but basically is to bring the knowledge of spirituality. Spirituality is the name of they use on the university. Spirituality. So new doctors are having to at least to listen to this kind of perspective. So that's massive because I had that in the south of Brazil, I had that in Espírito Santo, I had that in Rio Grande do Sul, few other states, they are doing the same. So slowly it's happening. Likewise, in the States, it's also happening. Here in UK, I haven't checked, but I guess as we've seen over the years, what is happening in one place quite often is happening more than two or three places at the same time. So I think it's happening. And as we do have the opportunity to work with spiritist doctors, we could see how that helped them to come to a diagnosis, if you can say like that. Sometimes can be conflicting as well, but it does help.
So to conclude our chat, which is running 5 minutes late, I am going to summarize what I thought, which is if you see a kid, if you have a kid under your um, care that might be presenting some of these indications, um, don't panic and search for a place or a spiritist center that has established mediumistic group with with a consolidated spiritual group behind it, where you can get the the treatment or the indication, the support that you need to understand that situation that will guide um, you, the family, and the child in the best way as possible. It will 100% go through education. It will go through creating healthy habits from a spiritual perspective. It will go into explaining to the child and getting the child used to the concepts that later, as they become adults, they will need to use to make their decisions on how they're going to use that mediumship ability that they have, um, and just carry on. It's as Guilherme said, it's a natural process. I'm just going to leave here Elsa's comment. Studying, I think, is always at the base. I think we mentioned that pretty much in every episode. Study will always come with it. And in many centers, you might have people that have requirements of things you might need to study before you get there. But again, if you have a spiritual group behind that will give you the recommendation for what is ideal for that specific case, then you have to think about it, trust, question, and again, if you have the trust, should follow their recommendation, trusting that they will also protect that worker. That was it from me. Guilherme, do you have any final words
Okay.
or?
Yes.
Yeah.
My final words. Well, first, I would think that we should, the next episode, to continue with the subject, because I think we still have more things to give as an example, to discuss. And remember, there isn't a single case that is exactly the same as the other one. It goes by case. In the event that you do not have a spirit center or you don't know what to do, today with the advent of internet, you can easily find people. It doesn't matter where you are. You may not have an institution next door, but you'll be able to find help. And I'm pretty sure that if you look a little bit, we'll find help. Sometimes maybe not be the final help, but could be a good start. So thank you. And that was an interesting topic, and hopefully next opportunity we'll be able to conclude this matter.
Yep. Nice to see you again, and hope to see all of you in 2 weeks. Bye.